Commander Zwaxthor of the Krellian Empire stood before the Galactic Council, his three eyes scanning the assembled delegates with confusion. He had just presented what should have been a straightforward proposal, the annexation of the primitive planet called Earth. "I don't understand," Zwaxthor said, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "The humans have no orbital defense platforms. No energy shields. Their fastest vessels can barely leave their own star system. Yet you all look at me as if I've suggested attacking the void itself." The council chamber fell silent. Ambassador Threll of the Chuvari Collective, a being resembling a floating mass of tentacles, finally spoke. "Commander, how long have you been in this sector?" 3 cycles, Zwaxthor replied. "Long enough to complete a full reconnaissance of the system. And you found no defenses?" "None of any significance. Some primitive nuclear weapons, conventional military forces. Nothing that could threaten a proper invasion fleet." Zwaxthor pulled up a holographic display. "Look at this. Their largest city sits completely undefended from orbital bombardment. Their communication networks are laughably easy to intercept. They even broadcast their exact locations through something called social media." A nervous chittering sound came from the insectoid hive representative. "Did your reconnaissance include their historical archives?" "Of course not," Zwaxthor snapped. "Why would I waste time studying the history of a species that will soon be conquered?" Ambassador Threll's tentacles writhed in what the commander had learned to recognize as deep concern. "That, Commander, is why you're about to make a fatal mistake. Tell me, in your reconnaissance, did you notice anything unusual about the humans themselves?" Zwaxthor shrugged, a gesture he'd learned from observing the humans. "They're bipedal mammals. Carbon-based. They breathe oxygen. Completely standard for Class M planets. Physically unremarkable, no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced strength or speed compared to other species we've encountered. And their weapons technology? Primitive but creative. They use chemical propellants to launch metal projectiles. Some energy weapons in development, but nothing impressive." Ambassador Threll exchanged glances with the other council members. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Finally, the crystalline sovereign of Arcturus spoke, her voice resonating like wind chimes. "Commander Zwaxthor, there is a reason Earth has remained unconquered despite having no formal defenses. There is a reason we have collectively agreed to leave that system alone. It is not because we fear their weapons. It is because we fear them." Zwaxthor's confusion deepened. "That makes no sense." "Sit down, Commander," Threll said quietly. "We need to tell you about the humans. And more importantly, we need to tell you why 17 different species have attempted to conquer Earth over the past 1,000 years. None succeeded. Most never even made it to the surface. And those that did." The ambassador's tentacles trembled. "Those that did learned why humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved as persistence predators." Ambassador Threll activated a holographic display showing a peaceful grassland on an unknown planet. Strange 6-legged creatures grazed peacefully. "This is Velkar Prime, my home world, 3,000 years ago," Threll began. "Notice how most prey species evolved, fast, alert, capable of extreme bursts of speed. And notice how predators evolved, stronger, faster, with natural weapons. This is the standard pattern across 97% of planets with complex life." The display shifted to show a pursuit. A massive predator with razor-sharp claws chased one of the 6-legged creatures. The chase lasted perhaps 30 seconds before the predator either caught its prey or gave up, exhausted. "Now observe Earth," Threll continued. The hologram changed to show an African savanna. A human, primitive, barely clothed, began jogging after a kudu antelope. The antelope sprinted away at incredible speed, easily outdistancing the human. Zwaxthor laughed. "You see? They're pathetically slow. keep watching. An hour passed in the simulation. The antelope had stopped, panting, its body overheating. The human was still jogging, barely winded. 2 hours. 3. The antelope could no longer run, its body failing from heat exhaustion. The human simply walked up and killed it with a primitive spear. Humans are the only species that evolved to run their prey to death, Threll explained. They don't stop. They overheat slower than almost any other mammal on their planet. They can run for days if necessary. And this trait, this horrifying, unnatural persistence, isn't just physical. Thor shifted uncomfortably. It's just one hunting strategy. Is it? The insectoid hive representative spoke up. Let me tell you about the first contact incident. 300 years ago, the Xanther Collective encountered a human colony ship. Just one ship, damaged, barely functional. The Xanther demanded surrender. The humans refused. The Xanther destroyed their engines, their weapons, their life support. Still, the humans refused to surrender. Do you know what they did? Thor remained silent. They turned their ship into a weapon. 43 humans survived in a single compartment with emergency oxygen for 8 days. They calculated the Xanther flagship's orbital pattern, waited until the perfect moment, and manually piloted their dead ship, using emergency thrusters meant for docking, into the Xanther command deck. They had a 1 in 10,000 chance of success. They succeeded. Killed 3,000 Xanther, including their entire command staff. One incident, Thor protested weakly. Ambassador Threll's tentacles coiled tightly. Commander, there are 400 documented incidents. Would you like to hear about the human who, after his squad was killed, fought for 3 days with a broken spine? Or the human settlement that, when invaded by the Croc's Dominion, fought back with farming equipment and won? Or perhaps you'd enjoy the story of the human research vessel that, when boarded by pirates, depressurized their own ship to kill the invaders, knowing they had exactly 90 seconds to reach emergency suits? The crystalline sovereign added, they even have words for this trait. They call it spite. They call it stubbornness. They have thousands of stories celebrating individuals who refuse to yield against impossible odds. It's woven into every aspect of their culture. Thor's confidence was beginning to crack. But surely a technologically superior force. The Vrwenen Empire thought so too, Threll interrupted. 40 years ago. Would you like to know what happened? The commander slowly nodded. The holographic display shifted to show a massive fleet of warships, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and bristling with weapons. Thor recognized the design, Vrwenen Empire, one of the most militarily powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. The Vrwenen were convinced that their technological superiority would make the invasion trivial, Ambassador Threll continued. They spent 2 full cycles studying Earth, just as you did. They saw the lack of orbital defenses. They saw the primitive weapons. They calculated that a force of 5,000 ships could subjugate the entire planet within a planetary rotation. What happened? Thor asked, though part of him no longer wanted to know. The Vrwenen made the same mistake everyone makes with humans. They assumed that because humans couldn't win, humans would surrender. They sent their demands, submit or face annihilation. The human response was broadcast across every communication channel on Earth, translated into 600 human languages, and sent back to the Vrwenen fleet. The holographic display showed a human, middle-aged, wearing some kind of formal suit, standing behind a podium with a flag behind him. His face was calm, but his eyes held something that made Thor's blood run cold. The message was 2 words in their primary diplomatic language, Threll said. Come try. Suicidal, Thor muttered. That's what the Vrwenen thought. They began orbital bombardment of military installations. The humans responded by launching every nuclear weapon they had, not at the Vrwenen ships, but at themselves. What? They detonated nuclear weapons in their own atmosphere, creating electromagnetic pulses that disabled their own electronics along with VRWNN scanning equipment. They turned their entire planet into a sensor-blind battlefield. Then, when the VRWNN landed ground forces, they discovered something none of the reconnaissance had prepared them for. The display showed VRWNN soldiers, equipped with advanced armor and energy weapons, moving through a human city. Suddenly, an explosion. Then another. Buildings collapsed. Traps activated. Humans appeared from nowhere, using chemical weapons, biological weapons, improvised explosives. The humans had spent the 2 weeks between first contact and invasion preparing, Threll explained. Every city became a fortress. Every civilian became a combatant. The humans have a saying, never attack someone who has nothing left to lose. The VRWNN took away humanity's hope of peaceful survival. In exchange, humans took away the VRWNN's hope of easy victory. But the VRWNN had superior numbers, superior technology. For every VRWNN soldier that landed, 3 never left. The humans didn't fight to win territory. They fought to inflict casualties. They used tactics the VRWNN had never encountered because they'd never fought a species desperate enough to use them. Suicide attacks. Chemical weapons deployed in their own cities. They even weaponized their own diseases, deliberately infected their own people with hemorrhagic fevers, then sent them to embrace VRWNN soldiers. Thor felt ill. Barbaric. Effective, the crystalline sovereign corrected. After 6 months, the VRWNN had lost 40% of their ground forces and hadn't secured a single major population center. The human resistance wasn't weakening, it was growing stronger. Every VRWNN attack created more humans with nothing to lose, more humans willing to do anything to fight back. The VRWNN could have simply destroyed the planet from orbit, Thor argued. They tried, Ambassador Threll said quietly. The humans scattered their leadership, their infrastructure, their weapons. They built bunkers deep underground. The VRWNN could have turned Earth's surface into molten glass, but they would have had to remain in orbit for years, systematically hunting down every last human hiding in caves and tunnels. And during that time, you know what the humans were doing? Thor shook his head. Building rockets. Primitive, chemical-fueled rockets with nuclear warheads. Hundreds of them. Launching them at VRWNN ships from hidden silos. They only had a 5% hit rate, but they didn't care. They just kept launching. The VRWNN invasion lasted 18 months, Ambassador Threll continued. Let me show you what that cost. The holographic display split into 2 images. On one side, Earth before the invasion, blue oceans, green continents, lights from cities visible on the night side. On the other, Earth after, vast sections of continents burned and blackened, oceans clouded with ash, the atmosphere hazy with particulate matter. The VRWNN achieved their objective, Threll said. They conquered Earth. At the cost of 7,000 ships, 200,000 soldiers, and complete exhaustion of their military resources. The human population had been reduced from 8 billion to 3 billion. Their infrastructure was destroyed. Their governments had collapsed. By every military metric, the VRWNN had won. Then why do you speak as if they lost? Thor asked. The insectoid hive representative clicked its mandibles in what might have been laughter. Because the humans never surrendered. Not formally. Not spiritually. Not even practically. Tell him about the occupation, Ambassador. Threll's tentacles rippled with what Thor had learned to recognize as distress. The VRWNN tried to establish occupation zones. They assigned governors to human territories. They attempted to integrate human survivors into their empire, as they had with dozens of other conquered species. It should have been simple. The humans were broken, starving, and defenseless. But Thor prompted. But humans don't stay broken. Within 3 months of the occupation, resistance cells had formed. Within 6 months, VRWNN occupation forces were being attacked daily. Not with military precision or advanced tactics, with whatever the humans could find. Rocks. Kitchen knives. Improvised explosives made from fertilizer. They poisoned food supplies. They sabotaged equipment. They even used their own children as spies because the VRWNN couldn't bring themselves to suspect juvenile humans. The display showed a VRWNN outpost exploding in flames. That was a food delivery, Threll explained. Routine supply dropped to an occupation force of 300. 12 humans had volunteered to work in the supply depot, seemed cooperative, even friendly. They spent 2 weeks gaining trust, learning routines, and identifying vulnerabilities. Then they loaded an entire shipment with explosives disguised as food containers. Killed every VRWNN in the outpost. The 12 humans knew it was a suicide mission. They did it anyway. Thor stared at the image. How many incidents like this? Thousands. Daily. In every occupied zone. The VRWNN brought in more soldiers, established stricter security, implemented harsh punishments. For every human killed, 10 more joined the resistance. They executed human leaders, and new leaders emerged. They destroyed human settlements, and survivors formed new ones. They tried to break the human spirit through brutality, and instead created an enemy that could never be defeated because they would never accept defeat. The crystalline sovereign's voice resonated sadly. The VRWNN Empire spent 3 years trying to hold Earth. In that time, they lost more soldiers to human resistance than they had during the initial invasion. Their economy collapsed under the strain. Other species, seeing the VRWNN's weakness, began claiming VRWNN territories. The empire that had been one of the galaxy's great powers was reduced to a third-rate nation. And Earth? Thor asked. The VRWNN withdrew. They left behind their dead, their equipment, their occupation infrastructure, and a message: Earth is not worth the cost. They formally declared Earth a forbidden zone and lobbied the Galactic Council to establish an exclusion perimeter around the system. Not to protect other species from humans, to protect humans from other species making the same mistake. But the humans won their freedom, Thor said. Surely they recovered, rebuilt. Ambassador Threll interrupted. That's what makes humans truly terrifying, Commander. They didn't just recover. Show him the current data. The holographic display updated to show Earth's present state. Cities rebuilt, larger than before. Orbital infrastructure, primitive but expanding. Population back to 7 billion and growing. And most striking, human ships beginning to venture beyond their system. They learned from the VRWNN technology left behind, the insectoid representative explained. Adapted it. Improved it in some cases. The humans who survived the invasion and occupation are now teaching their children and grandchildren one simple lesson: never let it happen again. They're building a military, Thor realized. Yes. And we're letting them. Because we've learned something important about humans: they don't forget. They don't forgive. And they absolutely will not stop. Thor sat heavily in his chair, his certainty from earlier completely evaporated. There must be something that can stop them. Some weakness we can exploit. The crystalline sovereign's voice carried a tone that might have been pity. Commander, you still don't understand. Let me tell you about the Karath swarm. The Karath? Thor's eyes widened. The Karath swarm was legendary, a hive species that had consumed 17 star systems before the galaxy's combined military forces stopped them. What do they have to do with Earth? 20 years ago, a Karath scout group entered the Sol system, the Sovereign explained. Just a small force, perhaps 50 vessels. They were studying human defenses, likely planning a future assault. The humans detected them immediately and sent a delegation. To negotiate? Thor asked. No. To warn. The human delegation consisted of a single unarmed shuttle with 3 representatives. They approached the Kareth flagship and transmitted a message. We obtained a copy of that transmission. Would you like to hear it? Before Thor could respond, the hologram activated. A human woman appeared, elderly, wearing simple clothes, her face weathered with age. She spoke calmly, as if discussing weather rather than potential annihilation. I am representing the human species, she said. We know what you are. We know what you do to worlds you invade. We need you to understand something about us before you decide to attack. We have a concept we call mutually assured destruction. It means if you kill us, we'll make certain we kill you too. We've calculated that we have approximately 48 hours between when you begin your assault and when Earth falls. In those 48 hours, we will do 3 things. The woman held up one finger. First, we will transmit every piece of information we have about you, your biology, your tactics, your weaknesses, to every other species in the galaxy. We will make certain that everyone knows how to fight you. A second finger. Second, we will launch every weapon we have at your fleet. Not just here, we have stealth probes positioned at your 3 nearest hive worlds. If Earth falls, those worlds burn. A third finger. Third, and most important, we will make certain that humanity survives. We have 19 colony ships positioned at various points beyond this system. They carry genetic samples, cultural archives, and 20,000 volunteers who have sworn to dedicate their lives to one purpose: hunting the Kareth wherever you exist in the galaxy. Not tomorrow. Not next year. For generations. For centuries if necessary. Humans are very good at holding grudges. The woman smiled, but it was the most terrifying expression Thor had ever seen. So here's our offer: leave us alone, and we'll leave you alone. Attack us, and we'll make certain that destroying Earth is the last thing the Kareth swarm ever does. The choice is yours. You have 1 hour to decide. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. What did the Kareth do? Thor asked quietly. They left, Ambassador Threll said. Without firing a single shot. The Kareth, who had never retreated from a weaker opponent, who had consumed planets with billions of inhabitants, turned around and fled from 3 humans in an unarmed shuttle. Do you know why? Because they believed the threat, Thor said. Because they understood that humans don't bluff. Every species makes threats, attack us and face consequences. Most are empty posturing. But humans? When humans make a threat, they've already done the calculations, made the preparations, and accepted the costs. That woman wasn't trying to scare the Kareth. She was explaining simple facts. The insectoid representative added, we analyzed that transmission thoroughly. The humans really had positioned those stealth probes. They really had 19 colony ships ready to launch. And they really had selected 20,000 volunteers willing to dedicate their lives to vengeance. All as preparation for an invasion that might never come. That's insane, Thor protested. That's human, the crystalline sovereign corrected. They have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. They never assume peace will last. They never assume safety is guaranteed. Commander Thor felt a growing unease spreading through his body. You're saying the entire galaxy lives in fear of a species that has barely left its own star system? Not fear, Ambassador Threll corrected. Respect. And caution. Let me tell you what truly concerns us about humans: it's not their persistence or their aggression. It's their pattern. The holographic display changed to show a timeline of human history. Wars, conflicts, and atrocities flashed across the screen in rapid succession. Look at their history, Threll continued. For thousands of years, humans have fought among themselves with a brutality that shocks most civilized species. They've committed genocides. They've built weapons designed specifically to cause maximum suffering. They've fought wars that killed millions over ideological differences that, from our perspective, seem insignificant. Then they're violent by nature, Zwaxthor said. That proves my point, they're a threat that should be contained. You're missing the pattern, the insectoid representative interjected. Watch what happens when humans face external threats. The timeline shifted to show the VRWN invasion. Notice how human factions that had been enemies for decades immediately unified. Nations that had fought 3 wars in the previous century instantly formed alliances. Political opponents stood together. Religious groups that had spent centuries in conflict suddenly found common cause. Humans have a saying, Ambassador Threll said. I against my brother, and I against our cousin, my cousin and I against the stranger. When faced with an external enemy, humans don't just unite, they become something else entirely. Something more dangerous. The crystalline sovereign added, during the VRWN occupation, we observed something remarkable. Humans who had been pacifists their entire lives took up arms. Artists became tacticians. Teachers became saboteurs. The entire species transformed into a resistance movement. This isn't normal behavior for any species we've encountered. Most species have a breaking point, Threll explained. Apply enough pressure, and they surrender or collapse. Humans don't have that breaking point, or if they do, we've never found it. Instead, they have what they call a point of no return, where they stop trying to survive and start trying to inflict maximum damage on their enemies, even if it costs them everything. Zwaxthor thought about his own species, the Krellians. If their homeworld were invaded, would they fight to the death? Or would they calculate the odds, realize defeat was inevitable, and surrender to preserve what they could? He knew the answer, and it shamed him. There's something else, the insectoid representative said quietly. Something that keeps us awake in our hibernation cycles. Let me show you. The holographic display showed human scientists working in laboratories, human engineers constructing massive projects, human explorers venturing into hostile environments. Notice the pattern? Humans don't just fight. They learn. Every conflict makes them stronger. The VRWN invasion taught them about energy shields, antimatter reactors, and faster-than-light communication. They absorbed that technology in less than a generation and began improving it. Now look at this. The display showed human ships, crude by galactic standards but functional, equipped with weapons that looked suspiciously similar to VRWN designs, but modified in ways that made them more efficient. They're not just copying technology, the insectoid explained. They're understanding the principles and innovating. In 20 years, they've advanced further than most species do in 2 centuries. If we allow them another 50 years of development. The sentence hung unfinished in the air, but Zwaxthor understood the implication. In 50 years, with access to galactic technology, humans might not be defenseless prey. They might be predators. So what do we do? Zwaxthor asked. Allow them to continue developing until they become a threat to all of us? Ambassador Threll's tentacles coiled in frustration. That's the terrible paradox of humanity, Commander. If we leave them alone, they eventually become powerful enough to threaten us. If we attack them while they're weak, they unite against us and inflict catastrophic casualties before they fall. And if we destroy their planet from orbit without giving them a chance to fight back. He paused. Those 19 colony ships are still out there. Somewhere. The humans have never revealed their locations or destinations. For all we know, there are human settlements scattered across the galaxy already, just waiting, watching, and preparing. The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Zwaxthor spoke, his voice subdued. You're telling me that the galaxy has essentially given humans a pass to develop their military capabilities because we're more afraid of making them enemies than we are of them becoming powerful. That's one way to put it, Ambassador Threll agreed. But there's more to it than fear. After the VRWN withdrawal, several species attempted diplomatic relations with Earth. The results were instructive. The holographic display showed a series of meetings between humans and various alien ambassadors. The humans were cautious but willing to engage. They signed trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense pacts. They honored every agreement meticulously. They even provided humanitarian aid to the VRWN when a plague struck one of their colony worlds. Zewexthor's mandibles clicked in confusion. They helped the species that had nearly exterminated them? That's the other side of humanity, the crystalline sovereign said. They're capable of extraordinary violence, yes, but also extraordinary compassion. They have a saying, don't start fights, but always finish them. If you approach them peacefully, they respond with genuine friendship. If you threaten them, they become your worst nightmare. The galaxy has essentially made a collective decision, the insectoid representative explained. We treat Earth as a sovereign system. We offer them trade, knowledge, and cultural exchange. We allow them to develop at their own pace. And in return, they've promised to remain peaceful and follow galactic law. And you trust them? Zewexthor asked skeptically. Yes, Ambassador Threll said simply. Because humans understand something that many species don't, peace is more profitable than war. They've calculated that joining the galactic community peacefully will bring them more benefits than conquest ever could. And humans are remarkably good at long-term planning when they choose to be. The crystalline sovereign added, we've also taken precautions. The exclusion zone around Earth isn't just to protect them, it's to ensure we have warning if they suddenly begin militarizing aggressively. We've established diplomatic channels that allow us to monitor their development. And we've made it clear that if they ever threaten another species without provocation, the entire galaxy will respond. But would we win such a conflict? Zewexthor asked. Eventually, Threll conceded. But the cost would be catastrophic. Better to have them as allies than enemies. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a recent human achievement, a space station under construction at the edge of their system, with human and alien workers collaborating on its assembly. This is the future we've chosen, Ambassador Threll said. Humans working alongside us, contributing to galactic civilization. They've already made significant contributions, their medical research has saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Their engineering innovations have improved faster-than-light efficiency by 12%. Their cultural exports are surprisingly popular in 3 different sectors. But we remain vigilant, the insectoid representative added. We watch them carefully. We maintain military readiness. We have contingency plans if they ever threaten galactic peace. But so far, they've proven to be exactly what they promised. Difficult friends but loyal allies. Zewexthor looked at his proposal for invading Earth, still displayed on his personal datapad. With a gesture, he deleted it. I understand now. Earth isn't defenseless because they lack weapons. They're defenseless because no defense is necessary when attacking you guarantees mutual destruction. Precisely, Ambassador Threll said. Now you understand why we've established the exclusion principle. Any species that attacks Earth without provocation will be considered an enemy of the entire Galactic Council. We've learned our lesson from the VRWN. We won't let another species make the same mistake. What should I tell my superiors? Zewexthor asked. They sent me here expecting conquest opportunities. Tell them the truth, the crystalline sovereign said. Earth offers opportunities for trade, cultural exchange, and scientific collaboration. The humans are willing partners in galactic civilization. But they are not, and will never be, easy victims. As the council session ended, Zwexthor found himself looking once more at the image of Earth, that small blue world, seemingly defenseless, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. He thought about the humans living on that world, going about their daily lives, probably unaware that their entire species was both feared and respected across the galaxy. Ambassador Threll approached him as he prepared to leave. "Commander, one last piece of advice. If you ever meet humans personally, you'll find them surprisingly friendly, curious, and welcoming. They'll share their food, their stories, and their laughter. They'll treat you with genuine warmth." "But?" Zwexthor prompted. "But never forget what they're capable of when threatened. That friendly human offering you what they call coffee and asking about your home world? They're also calculating how to kill you if necessary. It's not malicious, it's just how their minds work. They assess threats constantly, instinctively, even in peaceful situations." "That sounds exhausting," Zwexthor said. "For them, it's as natural as breathing," Threll replied. "That's what makes them human. That's what makes them survivors. And that's why Earth, despite appearing defenseless, is the safest planet in the galaxy from invasion." As Commander Zwexthor departed the council chambers and returned to his ship, he composed his report to the Krellian High Command. His recommendation was simple: establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Pursue trade agreements. Offer cultural exchange. But under no circumstances should the Krellian Empire ever consider military action against humanity. In the report's conclusion, he wrote a warning that he hoped his superiors would heed: Earth is not a world to be conquered. It is a species to be befriended. The humans have taught the galaxy a valuable lesson: the strongest defense is not weapons or shields, but the absolute certainty that attacking you will cost more than any victory could be worth. In this respect, the humans may be the most advanced species in the galaxy.